Hello YouTube, welcome to Form Validation with PHP, MySQL. I'm Jeff, and in this video we're going to take a look at the logic behind our forms and how we can improve the way that it works. So I'm looking at my table for our email application now, and this is the mailing list table. And when I sort by email, I can see that there are two users with the same email address in my system. And that is email@email.com. Now this isn't very practical, especially for an email application like this, because we're going to be sending out essentially our newsletter, and even if there are two people using this email address, if the email address is in here twice, they're going to receive two copies of our newsletter. So that's not good practice, and in fact with most member systems the email is something that you're going to validate, and you want to be unique in a database. So you don't typically have more than one user with the same email address, or another example would be the same username. So that would be bad practice. So what we'll do is we will modify our form so that it checks the database to make sure that the email address being entered in our sign up form does not already exist in our system. So here I have the latest version of our signup.php script. This is signup 2, and it's a self-referencing form, and we have our security stuff in here. So you can see the first name variable has been run through the strip slashes, strip tags, and because it's being passed to SQL, we are using the real escape string just to guard against potential SQL injection attacks. Now before I proceed, there's something I need to fix. I caught a mistake, and this is the MySQL close. So in the last video, when I added this this extra if statement, when we validated whether or not the fields were empty, we had to nest our functional code inside this else statement, and the MySQL close got placed in the wrong part. So I'm going to move this down here. There we go. And the reason why I do that is because if we look at this if statement here, if I just collapse it, the connection script is run right here on line 11, and it needs to close. So we have the MySQL close function right here in the same level. So the scope of it means that no matter what happens in the if statement, when that whole block is cleared, whether it runs the condition part of it or the else part of it, it will close the connection with the database when it's done. So that's what we want. Save that. Okay, another thing I'd like to clean up is the fact that when we use this system, the MySQL real escape strings, they modify the information that's entered into these fields for a good reason, to protect our database, but at the same time when we echo them back onto our field, if a user does have apostrophes in their name, it's going to have a slash in front of it. It's going to be escaped. So let me just demo that real quick. Preview this. So if I say D'Angelo and we just press submit, now the username has a slash in front of his or her apostrophe. Now that might be fine for our database, what's recorded in our database, but here on screen it's not useful, because the user might think that some kind of error has occurred, or that it's not getting their correct name. So what we'll do is go back to Dreamweaver, and we're just going to run this through the strip slashes function. And we've seen that up here. We used it here. Oops, strip slashes. Just going to use it again down here. Now, at this point in the game, this variable is not being passed to it's not being passed to SQL down here. It's just being rendered on screen. So it's okay to take the slashes back out and allow the apostrophes to show up. And we may as well just do this for each of them. Okay. Now if we preview this and try processing it again, I have, say, Paul, D'Angelo, and we'll give them an email address of G, and press submit. We can see that our confirmation message shows the escaped apostrophe. So this just gives us some confirmation as developers that it is escaping the apostrophe before it gets placed into the database. But then when it's rendered here in our form, it does not contain that slash. So that's nice. Okay. So now let's look at one more thing we can clean up. If you notice, we are doing the strip slashes, tags, and MySQL real escape string over and over again. We do it for the first name, the last name, and the email. And when we're working on a system like this, we have multiple forms. So we have our connect, we have our compose form, and our remove form. And if we would like to secure those forms as well, it means we're going to have to be typing these functions over and over again. So whenever you have to type a lot of code over and over again, it's a good idea to create some kind of modular solution. So let's create a function called secure data. So we'll create a new PHP file, and we'll just remove everything from there, and we'll put our PHP line in it. Okay, now we go over to here, and we're just going to copy these 3 lines, because that's the blocks, those are the blocks of codes that we want to repeat. There we go. So we're going to write function, and we give it a name like secure data, and curly brackets. There we go. So secure data, actually we're going to use that underscore instead. The secure data function is going to need 2 arguments. The first one is the database connection. So we're going to use DBC, and that's because under MySQL real escape string, that information is going to be required from in order to escape out whatever the data is we're sending it. Now the next value, we'll call it just simply data. It's generic, and we're going to change all these variables to data as well. So within the scope of our function, the information that's passed to it will be stored as data. but then be returned back to the calling variable. Oops. Okay. So now, when we send data to this with a connection, it's going to strip the slashes from it, strip the tags, and escape the characters. And then we just return it. There we go. So data will be sent back to the call statement. Let's save this, and we'll call it secure_data.php. And the reason why I'm saving this as a separate file rather than write it in my sign-up script is because now I can use this file in any of my other scripts that I want to secure data in. So here in the signup2.php, I'm going to create another include, and we'll include the secure-data .php file, and that essentially nests that function here, so it makes it available. So instead of strip slashes, we're just going to write the function name secure data, and we're going to pass it dbc and the post variable. Now I can delete lines 16 and 17 completely. And we'll do the same thing for first name, last name, and email. Okay. Just going to throw the dbc variable in each of these arguments. And now what will happen is, well, the same thing that happened before, only now it's a modular solution. Let's save this and test it. If I escape this, or I put an apostrophe and press submit, it says one or more required fields are blank. Okay, now let's add some information in so that it gets sent to our database. Press submit. Here we go. We've entered, and we can see that the real escape string is working. It's escaped out that apostrophe. Which is good. So that works the way we expected it to. Like I said, this solution will help when you secure your other scripts in this project. Okay, now the last thing we're going to do is check our logic. So whenever the user enters data into this form, we want the form to evaluate the email, check the database, and make sure that that email doesn't already exist. If it does exist, it should print a message to the user letting them know that that email address is already in the system. It's pretty typical stuff there. So let's do it. We have a query and a result right here, these two lines. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this code and paste it right above it. So before a system actually sends the new user information to our database, we're going to repurpose these statements and just do a quick check. So the query is actually going to be select. We'll select email from mailing list. So this is going to be different here. Where email equals, and this will be the variable email. the PHP variable. So whatever the user typed in, that's what we're going to search for in our database. Okay, so here this result doesn't change at all because we simply need to pass the query to our database and store the result. Now, what we're going to use here is another if statement to evaluate that result and determine whether or not that if statement, whether or not that email address exists. So we'll say if, and we're going to use another function, another built-in function called MySQL underscore num underscore rows, and we'll pass our results there. Okay, so if the number of rows returned from that is greater than 0, the error message we'll update our error message to say, sorry, this email already exists in our list. There we go. So that will update the message, the error message that the user sees, and it will not perform our functional part of our code. That will be done under the else block. So again, the if interrupts it and checks to see if there are any results. So if the result is greater than 0. If there is a single email address in there, it's going to return with 1 row, so the result will be greater than 0. So then in that case, it will echo this message. Okay, but if it's less than 0, which would be 0 in this case, it will do the else statement, which is the rest of our code. So we can tab this in, and we just need another bracket. Oops, missing a parenthesis up here. There we go. Okay. So it's pretty complex if we look at it at this point in the game, because we have all these nested if-elses. But when we write it in the way that we did, which is from the simple to complex, it can grow in complexity, but we understand what we're doing here. Let's save this and we'll test it one last time. In Internet Explorer. So we have one in there called email already, so we'll test that. We'll say email at email.com, submit. So our error message says, sorry, this email already exists in our list. You notice that it says you entered this, and that's because of where this echo information is in our script. So let's just go take care of that real quick. The first thing that happens once our form is validated is that it echoes that information on screen. You entered. So we're going to move that to a location that's more appropriate in our code, which is after we've confirmed that the information is ready to be placed into the form, which is down here. You have been successfully added to the mailing list. That's our result. So we can place those echoes down here, and this should make more sense. Let's just save that, and if I load this form again, we try this one last time, put some information in there, and try to enter email at email.com, submit. sorry, this email already exists in our list. Now if I change this to froggy@email.com, it went into the system fine. So been successfully added to the mailing list. We don't have an error message. So that's form validation. We've covered most of the basic principles behind it, and you should hopefully have the tools necessary to validate the remaining scripts in this project. Thank you for watching.